Hello, everybody, and welcome to Heart to Heart with Gary Reinhardt. I am your host, of course, Gary Reinhardt. I'm here with Jim Tavarus, the owner and operator of Camp Sacandaga. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking.
That's good. The weather's a little warm outside. It's actually today. It's a little cool, but it was 60 degrees yesterday. I couldn't believe it.
Everything's getting so muddy over at the camp. It's just crazy.
Oof. I know. I was actually outside in a t-shirt. And just... Alright, so I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. We're going to be discussing about the camps, the camp, and what you're hoping to do with it this summer.
Okay.
But give us a brief history of the camp itself.
Well, it's a really cool place. Back in the 30s, they created the Civil Conservation Corps. And what it was is putting a lot of young men to work who were, basically sitting around right in the Depression times. And throughout the United States, they built a number of camps. And our site is one of the sites of one of the camps. And they built it in the summer of 1934 is when they actually built the buildings. They actually had a couple camps set up. One was closer to Moffitt's Beach, and then they moved it to the location that they're in now. And they built the camp. And the original buildings, the rec hall, the education building, which is now our dining hall, the boys' bathhouse, the girls' bathhouse, a few of those buildings, even one of the barracks is still there. And we're one of the few remaining standing CCC camps in New York. So it was a CCC camp until the 40s, and that's when they shut the camps down, and a lot of gentlemen went into the military for World War II. And in 45, the camp was bought by Cooperative Extension. Actually, it was Fulton, Montgomery, Oneida, and Warren counties bought the camp. I think there was one other county in there that was part of it. And they wanted to run children's programs. So from 1945 to 2005, it was a 4-H camp. And they shut the doors in 2005. There was a lot of things with the infrastructure of the facility. The buildings were never meant to be permanent buildings. So some of the buildings started to fall apart, and they really just had a harder and harder time with enrollment. And there was a lot of other things that Cooperative Extension was demanding on their 4-H staff. A lot of things started to change in that time frame. So they unfortunately had to close the camp. And then in 2010, a couple bought the camp from the folks were from South Carolina, and they put in a ton of money into the place. Rebuilt the rec hall, redid the whole dining hall, and a lot of the facilities, and did a lot of work on it. And it was their intention that they were going to run a religious retreat, like a family camp, a religious camp for children, but also a camp for children with disabilities. But what I think happened was they were, there's just so many rules and regulations for a children's camp for disabilities. So they, and a lot of other things that they just were having a hard time getting any enrollment. Now, they knew I was interested in the camp. And a little bit of my history was that from 1994 to 2000, I was the director there when it was a 4-H camp. So they knew I knew about the camp. I had stopped by a few times. They knew I was interested, so they gave me an opportunity, a 3-year lease to own, which I'm in my second year of that lease, and trying to get a camp started up.
Excellent. I knew the couple. Their name escapes me right
Naismiths.
now. The Naismiths.
Mm-hmm.
I know them from working at Deerfoot.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 2 summers at Deerfoot, and you meet a lot of the people around the lake, and there are certain names that always seem to come up. And they were very nice couple.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had the opportunity to work there as a cook, but it just never materialized as I had hoped. It's tough when you try to work in the summer, and then especially around here, and then in the winter you are out of a job because the winter.
Yes.
But they were very kind to give me that opportunity. So, what is the mission of the campsite or campground?
Oh, well, it's very simple. We're there to create a small environment, a traditional old school summer camp. When you think of a summer camp where kids are canoeing, kids are swimming, kids are playing, shooting archery, learning games, That's what we want. We want to get back to those old school connections where kids are meeting face to face. And it's in a tech-free environment. We don't let the kids have their cell phones. And believe it or not, I've now been working at camps for quite a few years. Last 15 years, I was at LG Cook 4-H Camp, which is in New Jersey, northern New Jersey. And we had a no cell phone policy there, and it worked really well. Getting the kids away from that technology just for that short amount of time, even a week, it's like a vacation. They start to interact. They start to do the things that we remember growing up as kids that we did. And it's fun to watch, and it's a great environment. And so we're starting small and working our way up.
Yeah. My camp experience is on the opposite spectrum. I've been a camper at various camps for a long time. I'm actually an Eagle Scout, so I spent tons of summers, at least 4, 5, 6 at Boy Scout camp, and then even more at Cub Scout camp, which was Camp Boyhaven down by Fort Ann. I think it was either Fort Ann or Fort Henry, and then Camp Wampami, which is more near Saratoga. And they had the same concept. They had the archery, and I was like shooting rifles and the like. And my dad always made fun of me because my merit badges I have like basket weaving, and I said that will be important if I get lost in the woods. I can make that basket; it'll save my life.
There you go.
But and then I also worked at Deerfoot, which has a similar policy. They get rid of the cell phones, we get rid of all sorts of not essential.
Well, distractions. They get rid of these distractions for them being a kid. And Deerfoot is an amazing camp, but that's a generational camp. They're folks that have gone there where their parents went there and their grandparents went there. It's an amazing program, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it is, and it's great to see the kids run around and just have fun.
Yes.
And get to know each other, and just be kids without the distraction of the internet and such. And it's just as freeing for the staff as well.
Yes.
I mean, we get a day off that we can go into town and get what supplies you need, but other than that, we're also kind of cut off from technology. We're not allowed to bring our own technology in, even if we're not like I was in the kitchen, so I wasn't direct staff, but we still couldn't have our iPods or anything like that. And it's such a freeing experience to be with your fellow staff members and to talk and to read, and it's such a beautiful area. So what is the age range, gender range, if there is one, of this camp?
Well, it's for boys and girls, ages 8 to 16. The older kids are usually in our counseling training program, and we just started that up. We've been going, this will be our third summer, but some of the children that went to CIT 1s my first summer went and became CIT 2s last summer, and now are moving into the CIT 3 position. It's a 3-tiered system that helps them to learn how to become a counselor. Once they finish the CIT program, they can become volunteer counselors. That's the only young people that I'll bring on board at age 17. All of my counselors are 18 and older. I try to have a year of college, depending. The only ones I'll hire that are 18 that have just come out of high school are the ones that went through the counseling training program.
Excellent. And is this like a New York State type training program, or is this like more of a national type training program with the counselors?
Well, there's not. The New York State has 9 different points that we need to train, but we also do a lot of other trainings. We do everything from how to deal with children who are homesick. We actually don't call them homesick. We call them sad campers because, everyone gets sad once in a while.
Yeah.
So what do you do when they get sad? Well, you hug your teddy bear, you write a letter. But if you're homesick, well, now you got physical symptoms. I'm sick. I'm going to throw up and whatever. So, and knock on wood, we only have sent only one child in the past 2 summers home for being sad.
Yeah, I was definitely one of those sad campers, especially when I made the transition from Camp Boyhaven, where 9 times out of 10 you had a dad, an uncle, a grandfather. You had some sort of father, or even sometimes mother, parental guidance from there, and then you transition to Camp Wampami, where it's just you, and the only adult you have with you are your the Boy Scout leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and I was very, very sad. I was such a sad camper.
Well, we deal with that, and it's a normal thing, and it's great though. We're hopefully preparing them so that when they go to college or they do other things, they're actually able to make that transition a lot easier.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I had a den leader. Her name was Donna Amadon, and I hope she's listening right now. Who was so kind to me when I kept telling him, like, I want to go home. I don't want to be here. Mm-hmm. You know, and one of the rough parts is they have a family. They have a thing where they bring the family in midway to the week, and it's very common for kids to, as soon as they see their parents, they latch on, I want to go home.
Exactly.
And here's my opportunity, even though it's halfway through camp. And she was so nice, and she would say, you know, if you go home, then I'm going to have to go home too. And I'm like, oh, I can't do that to her. And, you know, of course, that day came, and my mom didn't help. She's like, you can come home if you want. I'm like, no, I have to stay here. And I'm so glad I did.
Good.
You know, and she was just such a wonderful lady. She still is. And a big part of me attaining my Eagle Scout merit badge. Or just rank, I guess it'd be. So how can people sign up and be involved with the camp? You mentioned that there was the training programs for counselors. I'm assuming there's also other jobs that need to be filled, such as cooking and cleaning. And
well, we're looking for a maintenance man this summer, or maintenance woman, depending. Love to find someone who's a jack of all trades who can fix things, because, you know, as it is an older camp, there are things that we need to maintain and keep up with. We have kitchen staff that we need, and of course counselors and senior staff. I'm fortunate that my assistant director is coming back this year, and my nurse, or my RN, is coming back this year. So we're excited that we're going to have some of those key components in there. And the way you apply is either stop over the camp and get an application, or you can go right online to campsacandaga.com. Everything is there online. You can fill it right out, and we'll get your application, get your references in, and do an interview and do background checks and go from there.
Do you still have the facilities for the disabled campers, or are you more trying to move away from that?
Oh, no. I mean, any child can come to camp. But the infrastructure there needs a lot of work in order to get us up to that point. For example, we have a bathroom that's accessible, but when they put it in, for some reason they put gravel paths to it, which doesn't make sense for a wheelchair. Also, there's not a shower in there. We're working on getting grants and loans for that, so that we can actually put those and have that 100%. I'm going to put in a concrete walkway to it and make that up. And also, we do have a couple cabins that just need a little bit of upgrades just to get the ramp to them, and a few other little things. But I've had children of all abilities come to camp. My favorite story is Ellen Bartlett. She was a young girl that came to camp when I was the director at Sacandaga back in the 90s. And she's actually one of our alumni. And she was blind. And we were able to adapt camp and make a tactile map for her and do a lot of other things for her. And, you know, it went really well, and she had a great time. She ended up coming for 5 or 6 years. So we are able to make adaptations. The only thing is that the child has to be able to meet their own needs. In other words, if they have certain needs that have to be met that we can't normally meet, if they want to bring a parent or an adult or someone with them to help them to get through that, that's perfectly fine. We actually encourage that. But you know, we've had children with different abilities to camp, but we just have to make sure that they're able to tie their shoes and do things that they need to do to take care of themselves.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough thing to do, is to have children with many different disabilities, some visible, some not so visible. I remember working at Deerfoot. We had a child for the first time, that was my last year, who had a diabetic pump, and we had never had a child with a diabetic, like one that was attached. And we were always afraid, or I guess the camp was always afraid, that if it got damaged out on the hiking trail, what do we do? Because you're out, in the woods, you're not very accessible to things like that.
Yeah, and there's ways that you can work around that. And with a child, depending on what level their insulin needs are, and there's a certain amount of time that they can go. So, and with our camp, we're such a small camp that we're pretty well centrally located.
Yeah.
But you're right, and we do work with children. We've had children who've had different types of needs like that. Severe allergies. Those are also a bit of a challenge. But we work on our menu, and we work with the parents. Sometimes they'll bring their food that they need. Sometimes we'll have things like, for example, gluten-free allergies, or gluten allergies. We do have stuff there on camp for them to help them out.
Yeah, I have actually an interesting quick story. Because as I mentioned, I worked in the kitchen at Deerfoot, and we had a child who had that sort of disability, I guess you could call it, or allergies.
Mm-hmm.
We had normal ones like peanuts and lactose intolerant. And when we got the list for the campers who had allergies, he had a whole paragraph. There was a lot of stuff he couldn't have, and a lot of stuff he couldn't even touch. And it would swell up, and we had to train on how to use an EpiPen, what to do if something like that were to happen. And his mother brought a bag that had like all these rice treats and things of that nature. So towards the end of camp, we had a fishing program, and he caught this really nice perch, and we allow the kids to bring it up if it's large enough, and we'll cook it for them. So they bring up this fish, and they're like, we want you to cook it for us so we can eat it. And that boy was part of the group, and we're looking at it, and we're like, okay, how can we prepare this fish so we don't so this kid's not in trouble?
Yeah, what kind of oil do you use? What kind of your
yeah,
pans and all that stuff?
We couldn't use peanut oil. We had to be careful, what kind of oil, what kind of seasonings we could have. And luckily, everything went well. They enjoyed it, and and those are the special type of obstacles you gotta go through.
But really, when you have a good qualified staff, it's not that hard to make those adaptations. It really isn't.
No, and he was so happy. He got to, and he told his mom, like, I got to eat a fish out of the lake. And she was so happy, and she talked to us, and she was so thankful that we were able to work around.
Well, a kid just wants to be a kid.
Yeah.
And if you can give them that opportunity and provide that space for them, that safe environment, that's what you want to do.
Yeah. Now, how important is a campground like yours here in the Adirondacks?
How important is it?
Important. Yeah.
Well, as a member of the community, I think that we need to have more businesses up here that attract people to the area. I think if you talk to a lot of people in this area, a lot of people happen to pass through for some reason, and stayed here and ended up loving this place. And then they moved up here. But also just having people come and visit this area, having parents stay at Moffitt's Beach, having folks stay at the local hotels. That we need to keep those businesses and keep the economy going up here. And so camps are a great way to get people up into the area to visit. And once they visit the area, they love it.
Yeah. Now, what do you? Of course, I've lived here 29 years, going on 30, and I see things in the Adirondacks that are different. But some of my listeners might not know. What makes the Adirondacks unique compared to other places?
Oh, wow. It's funny because, as I said, for the past 15 years before I came here, I was working in northern New Jersey in Stoke State Forest. It was a big forest area, very rural community. The Stokes had these nice gorges that you could walk through where the rivers had cut through. And it was a neat, wonderful area to live in. If you think about New Jersey, you always think city or you think Trenton, stuff like that. And so it was a unique place. But what it was missing was the people. And the thing is up here, it's the people, the folks that you get to know. I mean, you walk into an establishment and you talk with people. There are people here that if you need something, they're there for a second. And in a second, and they want to help you. It's just this whole environment of everyone's up here because they want to be here and they love being here. And there's difficulties of living up here. You have to drive a certain amount of distance to go get a lot of supplies, and the prices are a little bit more expensive up here because it's harder to get stuff up here. But the quality of life here is so much higher than anywhere else, in that you get a better experience. You can go outside and walk go over to Panther Mountain, hike up the hill if you want to. If you want to go fishing, you just walk out your door and there it is. It's such a beautiful place to live, and it's also a friendly place to live.
Yeah, and that's definitely a reason why I've wanted to stay. For my lifetime, like I said, 29, 30, going on to 30, because it's such a friendly place.
Yeah.
And even when my cousin's daughter, Lena, which has been a huge help, the community came together and has really helped them out. And it's special because you go to other communities and you have things like that happen, and maybe the people don't, I don't want to say don't care as much, but if they get lost in the shuffle, we're here, that we come together and we make sure stuff gets done.
Yes.
Yeah. So you mentioned a few of the obstacles that you have run into trying to get this camp started. Mm-hmm. Are there any others that come to mind?
Well, for me, it's getting the word out. The camp was here for such a long time as a 4-H camp, and it's funny. My first summer, which was in 2016, we did 1 week of camp. We had 24 children. Last summer, I had 70 children. So we're slowly building, and we would like to hit 200 if we could this summer. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but that first summer, I had to rely on a lot of volunteers. The funny thing is that a lot of the volunteers were actually folks that had worked for me when I was here in the 90s. So they're parents of kids, and their kids actually came to camp, and they helped out. And the average counselor age was 45. So we were the A team, the arthritic team, as we said. So, but we had such a great time. The kids had a great time. I had a 96% return rate last year. That's amazing. It's unheard of. And so we were excited about that. But one of the obstacles is getting staff, is getting the rules and regulations in New York State are very stringent and sometimes very difficult to deal with, but we're able to do it. I mean, having that pool on camp is an amazing thing, but it's a lot of work and a lot of money to put into it to keep it up and running and keep it to a standard that's very safe for kids. And New York State Department of Health helps us to do it.
Now, is the camp just owned by you, or is there like a corporation? Because like at Deerfoot, they have a corporation behind it.
Well, Deerfoot's probably a nonprofit organization. We are at LLC at the moment. We're not sure if we want to go nonprofit yet or not. We've been talking about, there's some advantages to that. And one of the advantages is that there's so much resources. There's grants and loans and things you can get as a nonprofit that you can't get as a quote unquote for-profit. And we're really not a for-profit when you think about it. Last year, I raised over $13,000 for kids to come to camp. 46% of the kids that came to camp got some sort of scholarship or campership or some money applied toward them. So, we're not operating like a for-profit, but the downside of being a nonprofit, in my opinion, is that our community suffers, because if you don't have to pay taxes, that takes a section of money out of our tax rolls, which means there's less money for some of the infrastructure that's needed in our town. And it gets to be more and more where there's these large chunks of land that if they were on the tax rolls would help keep our costs of taxes down. And so there's a trade-off there. And I think that there's some things that, as an organization, we want to always be in support of the community. And I'm not saying support of, we'll throw a couple camperships here, have kids come to camp. There's a lot more to being a support in the community. I'm trying to be involved in as many organizations and try to help it out as much as I can, because I feel that the more I can be a part of my community, the more help I can be to it, the more healthier the community is. And then in turn, the better off it's going to be for camp.
Well, we're very glad to have you and help out. I know that's always been a big obstacle for parents and for kids, is to try to afford camping experience. Luckily with Boy Scouts, of course, you have the main Boy Scout Central Command that will help out smaller groups like us, and of course we raised our own money through popcorn sales and wrapping paper, and luckily the community, as we spoke earlier, we're very quick to help us get to camp.
Well, the local Lions Club has given to have some kids come to camp. The Pasico Auxiliary, they have are sponsoring a scholarship. I've been able to find funds in different organizations that want to donate. Some children from the Edinburgh School down in Northville. They're Northville, North Creek, Northville. Yes,
Yeah, Edinburgh is like
yeah,
Northville.
yeah. But they're going to be doing a fundraiser for some kids to come to camp. Last year they had a bunch of children that got closed out of the sheriff's program because they had applied to the wrong county, and we were able to get a bunch of them to come to camp. So I haven't turned away a child yet for a campership. The only time that we've had one little glitch was our first summer. We wanted to go for a few weeks of camp, and we ended up not having enough kids to do 2 or 3 sessions, and we closed it down to 1 session. And one young gentleman unfortunately got closed out, and he couldn't come any other week. And so that's one of my biggest regrets of doing this, is that one boy wasn't able to come to camp because we just couldn't offer camp that week. So I never want to be in that situation again. I want to make sure we always are able to provide that for all the kids.
So how's the capacity looking so far? Have you had pre-registration?
Oh yeah, we started registration December 1st, and we're ahead of where we were last year, but we're not as high as I'd like to be. I think I'd really want to. We're starting to try some different ways of advertising, trying to get the word out there, because last year 86% of our kids was word of mouth. So getting parents to tell other parents about our camp is the number one way that we can advertise. You can I did Facebook ads, I did all kinds of stuff. None of that really worked like that word of mouth. So we're trying to get out there and get the word out, but we're also trying some other areas, and I'm always interested to find new ways to let people know about camp. We've given some brochures to some to some schools, and we've talked to different people, and I've done different things. We just did our fundraiser, Freezing for a Reason. We jumped into the lake on the 10th, and I'll tell you, it was we were going to jump in on the first of the year, but it was so brutally cold, and some of my folks were like, "There's no way they could do it," so we had to postpone it. But we still raised over $3,000. So.
Yeah, I still remember for the Wounded Warriors, Neil's the only one in there. And I'm like, I will give Wounded Warriors all the money in the world if I do not have to jump in that hole.
Yeah, I think that was the way it worked, yeah. But, and I'll probably continue. That's the last time I think we're going to do that kind of fundraiser, because we tied it in with a GoFundMe type thing. Mm-hmm. I think that's the last time we're going to do that. We're thinking about doing a carnival and doing some other activities where we can get people on camp and on site to see what the place is about. And then also try to raise some money that way, too.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing, especially when the summer hits, is to try and get events going. You know, of course, we have Pirates Weekend coming up. Maple Fest is the 17th. But to get kids like out and about without, as we mentioned before, without cell phones, without media attached to them, and let them run around and be kids.
Yeah.
So I think having events like that would be great, the carnivals and the things like that. What are some of the short-term goals you're looking for at camp?
Well, short-term goal for me right now is to get my enrollment up to where we're self-sufficient. I have a capacity of 105 children per session. And our sessions run from Sunday afternoon till Friday evening. And the kids come up for 1-week sessions. And this year we'll be doing 4 of those. But my short-term goal is to get my numbers up to where we are able to meet all of our financial obligations. In other words, pay the bills. And once I hit that number, then we're good. Also, we're looking at, as I said, I'm on a lease, so the next step will be to get to get a loan for a mortgage that we'll have for the site, so that we're away from that lease and more into our own, on our own 2 feet. So that's a short-term goal. And then, of course, a big goal that we have is that once I have ownership over the property, in other words, I'm out from under the lease, we're looking at winterizing the girls' bathhouse and putting a divider into it so that I can use it year-round. And then I'm going to start a few of the cabins we're going to have available for snowmobile rentals. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be bringing more lodging into the area, which is something I think that this place we really definitely need.
Yeah, my cousin Carolyn and her boyfriend were actually staying at your campsite as an Airbnb.
Yep.
How's that been working out for you?
Oh, it's great. That helps pay the bills. Pay electric bill and pay the a few of the other gas bills, stuff like that. So, it's been a great success for us. And the great thing about it is that if it's warmer months, I usually get a fire going for people, and we sit down, and have a great time, and just sit around the fire and talk about camp and look at the stars. And it's been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, they had nothing but glowing reviews.
Good.
When I talked to my Aunt Florence last night when I was coming up with these questions, and that's exactly what she said. Like, as soon as we got there, he was going to start a fire, and we all got to talk, and it's great to hear stuff like that. Yeah. Do you suggest it for other people in this area? Maybe to boost the lodging?
I highly recommend it. As a matter of fact, through the Chamber of Commerce, we're going to be offering a seminar session on Airbnb, and it's going to be hopefully a panel of people put together who are offering Airbnb, but also people who want to learn about how to do Airbnb and all the issues and problems with that, and having just to sit down, all of us sit together, have some coffee, and talk about how can we do this, how can we offer this, and more people hopefully will be involved in it. That's something that we're going to offer in June through the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, it's an interesting prospect, being that most of the houses, especially where I live right near the golf course, so a lot of those houses in that line were all part of a huge hotel complex.
Mm-hmm.
Even the deed to my house has certain stipulations back when it was a hotel, like I can't sell fireworks, tobacco, and alcohol. Was I turn to my brother and go, well, there goes my fireworks, alcohol, and tobacco store I was going to start in the house.
Yep.
But it would kind of harken back to when we had all these hotels.
Yes.
To have people stay in, and I think that's something we've lacked recently.
Well, last weekend with the poker run, one of the biggest problems I heard from people was that we didn't even have enough Airbnb spaces. There wasn't enough housing for people who came into the area. Said there's no place, it's all booked. Mm-hmm. So, and that's great for our community, but we need more. And the more people we can get into our community, the better off it's going to be for our economy.
Yeah. When I had my mom's funeral, it was a few years ago, it was really tough because my mom's family is from Wyckoff, New Jersey, mm-hmm. which you probably know, being northern Jersey. And so many of them came up for the funeral, but we had no place to put them. Yeah. So they had to drive all the way from Wyckoff. It was about a 4 to 5 hour drive, mm-hmm. attend this funeral, and then drive all the way back to Wyckoff. Because by the time they got to Johnstown, Amsterdam, you're already by the toll roads. You just keep going from there, and you'll make it eventually. But it was just hard to see all these people have to drive all the way there and then all the way back in one day, and not have a place to at least stay the night in town. So, what kind of facilities do you have at camp? You mentioned you have the swimming pool, which was there when the Naismiths.
They put it in 2014, yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely wanted to take a dip if I had the chance.
Well, they're all going to stop over when it's up and running. Usually I get it up after Memorial Day week, and I try to get that up and running. And if you want to come and help me let you take a dip, if you help me scrub parts of the sides there, just to, right. I always like barter, have people come in and do all that stuff.
Yeah, that's a good trade-off.
Hey, that's a great little pool. But we also have, the archery range. We have the dining hall, which has these wonderful tables that are in there. Right now, I have a capacity of about 80 people in the dining hall. We're going to have to do some arranging when we have it. But it has a beautiful sun porch on it that's just great to sit in and just relax away from the bugs. We have 11 cabins total that kids can stay in. And the average capacity per cabin is 8 to 10, depending on the footprint. A lot of those cabins were built, they took down a lot of the original CCC structures, and the Seabees came up in the 70s and built a lot of those cabins, which is kind of neat. Seabees from, I think it was the Glens Falls area that they came up to do that. We have a couple other buildings that we use for crafts. The boys' bathhouse, the girls' bathhouse, those have running water and hot water and showers and toilets and stuff like that. But the big center point of camp is the rec hall. It's a big, beautiful rec hall. It has a stage, a large soapstone stove in it. Has the camp store, and then linked to that we have our camp infirmary.
Excellent. And then you mentioned that you might have like archery ranges
Yep.
and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
Have you decided if you are going to try and get like a rifle range or anything like that, or kind of just stick with archery?
No, I think eventually we're going to. I'm since I was in 4-H for such a long time, I'm still involved in the 4-H shooting sports program. As a matter of fact, this weekend I'm going to help train future coordinators for the state over in Ballston Spa. Oh no, I'm sorry, over in Saratoga. And so, being involved in 4-H shooting sports, it's about youth development, and they do a lot of programs with the kids for that involve firearms. So we're thinking of having a range out back at some point. And once we build the range, I'd like to make partnerships with some of the local fishing games and folks if they want to come over to sight in their rifles and do some things. It's not going to be a long range. It's going to be about a 75-yard range at the most, but it's a good one for sighting in rifles for hunting and things like that. But also we want to do, for camp, we want to do muzzleloader, shotgun, and more than likely air rifles. I don't think we're going to get into 22s yet, but it depends on what we have as our backstops.
Yeah. When I was at Boy Scout camp, we did that. We had rifles. We also had shotguns. And it was funny because I had never picked up a shotgun in my life. And then when they did the initial testing to figure out where they were going to put me, I hit 10 out of 10 targets. And they looked at me like, "Are you sure you've never touched a shotgun?" I'm like, never touched a shotgun in my life. But I guess I didn't develop bad habits because I didn't have any habits. Exactly. And it just happened to work out.
And some people are just really good with instinctive shooting. It's amazing.
It was a lot of fun. You get sore shoulder, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And if you've got basket weaving and clay pottery, I am your man.
Nice.
Have you been in contact with the other local camps such as Deerfoot, Tapawingo, Camp Fowler about maybe some ideas to implement in your camp, or some advice like stuff that has worked or hasn't worked at their campsites that you might be able to integrate with yours?
Well, the Camp of the Woods and Deerfoot Lodge are a very different type of organization because they're so much larger and they have such a larger reach. So it's hard. It's not apples and oranges, but it's a little bit different. But we have an amazing relationship with Camp Fowler. As a matter of fact, Kent Bushman over there, he was when I was here in the 90s, he was the director over at Fowler. So we had a good relationship back then. Matter of fact, we have a trail that goes between our two camps that we're reestablishing as the Friendship Trail. So, and we're always sharing ideas. I go over there every so often and have a cup of coffee, and he brought a group of kids over to use our swimming pool last year, and we have this relationship that we're not in direct competition because we serve different audiences. His camp will serve more of folks that are looking for the religious retreat or the that type of program, and he's also a larger camp than we are. We're a small little place that that is just getting our feet under us. As far as camping experiences, I started working at camps in 1985. Worked at Hidden Valley 4-H Camp in Watkins Glen for a total of 8 years. Worked at 4-H Camp Sacandaga for a total of 8 years. And then, of course, at LG Cook for 15 years. And 15 years at LG Cook, I was the director, and it was a year-round facility. And ran a very successful summer camp program. Matter of fact, we started out with 532 kids when I first started, and we ended up where we broke the 1,000 mark when I left there, that year I left. So it's about building a great community. When you build a good community, the kids will come back year after year. But yeah, we're always exchanging ideas and throwing around some thoughts and helping share what resources we do have.
Yeah, and speaking of community, how has the reception been for the local community about your campsite?
Well, I think people are excited about it. I haven't heard anything negative. As a matter of fact, people will stop over and I'll walk them around. I love showing off camp. Right now it's a little bit harder to get around because of the snow and getting into one or two of the buildings, but and I invite people to come over because I want them to know about it, and I want to be a part of the community. I don't want to have this standoffishness, that's not part of our philosophy. Our basic philosophy at camp is kindness, respect, responsibility. Those are the cornerstones of what we're doing there. So which are easy concepts for kids to understand.
Now, are you going to be affiliated with any sort of program? You mentioned 4-H a lot, or anything of that nature? Or?
No, we're going to be independent. But if 4-H or other organizations want to be a part of it, as a matter of fact, Fulton, Montgomery County, two of the alumni who were all old 4-H alumni that had come to camp for years and years and years, they donated to get 4 kids from Fulton, Montgomery 4-H to come to camp. So we're excited about them coming up, and so we still want to keep those connections and maintain those relationships, but we are independent. We have our set mission in mind, and we want to kind of keep that independence to not taint that view of what we want to do.
Well, I'm very excited to hear, especially, like I said, being a former camper and camp employee, just like you said, just seeing the kids have so much fun.
Yeah.
It's infectious, and you can't help but feel really good. And even as a kitchen staff, where I wasn't as directly with the kids as the other the camp counselors, you still get pulled in by just their infectiousness.
Yeah. Well, last summer, our chef Brian, if you read the reviews from the kids, and we have each kid fill out evaluations and stuff, that's all they talked about was the food and Chef Brian, because he was such a integral part that I don't believe that any staff member at camp should be a part of the camp. Sometimes people feel, well, I'm a cook, so I'm only going to do... No, you're a part of camp. You're going to help sing songs, and you're going to be a part of it, and they're going to get to know you because you're an important piece of that puzzle that makes their experience great.
Yeah, if my friends from Deerfoot are listening, they definitely know my nickname was Chief Gray Squirrel, because when I was at Boy Scout camp, we had a Gray Squirrel song. Yep. And I was telling one of my friends about it there, and he's like, you gotta do the song. And I'm like, I'm not gonna do the song. You know, he's like, all right. So he goes out front, he goes, kids, you want to hear the Gray Squirrel song? And they for me out there, and I do it, and the kids just loved it.
Oh, it's a hysterical song.
So, like, as I'm going around, all the kids are like, it's Chief Gray Squirrel. And I still get that sometimes. I try to visit at least once or twice a summer, and I'll still get kids who are now teenagers, and they're heading out. And they're like, hey, you're Chief Gray Squirrel. I remember when I was a kid that used to do the dance.
Yep.
And it's just so wonderful to know that you were part of just great memories of camp and just fun times like that.
Well, that's what we're hoping to create. And where Deerfoot is generational, where kids come year after year after year, that's what we want to create here too.
You know, it's kind of, same thing at Boy Scout camp. Just, I have so many great memories, and the staff there was so great. And it's just a wonderful time. Do you have any other comments you'd like to state before we sign off for the day?
Yeah, sign up for camp. No, we're looking for children. If you know of children that want to come to camp, please contact me. You can go through the website, or there'll probably be a link on here for the camp at some point. But reach out if you know a child in need, because there's a lot of organizations out there that have funds for kids to come to camp. I don't want any child not to go, and I haven't turned anyone away yet, knock on wood. So, and also we are looking for kids who want to come to camp. And just because it's in your backyard doesn't mean that it's not a great program. The program is what they get a lot out of. It's not necessarily location, although we are a beautiful little location there.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that, and hopefully when we get more towards the summer, Casey and I are talking about doing a business spotlight, where we choose a business and we try to spotlight it, and going to camp and hopefully getting to see everything as you're all ramping up would be amazing to do. But thank you for joining us today. I appreciate getting to sit down and talk to you and see such an enthusiastic person about camp. So this was Gary Reinhardt for Heart to Heart, and we will talk to you next time.
Thank you.